Happy Finish Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for continuing to be so faithful about watching these Finish Fridays. I am so enjoying teaching you and hope that you're building kind of what we call the repertoire of finishes. So you're going to be able to look at a piece, you're going to be able to dissect it, you're going to think about what kind of finish you want to put on it, what color you want to be able to use. And then today we want to be going over striping and details that can make all the difference in the piece that you are rescuing and restoring. So let's look at a picture really quick. Now, this is just a couple of pages out of my new book, The Rescue, Restore, Redecorate. Look at the before of this piece. Now, I'm gonna cover myself up. I want you to just look at the piece. Look at the detail on it. And maybe you wouldn't normally think about it having a lot of details, but now look at the after picture. This is a simple little nightstand that had very accentuated areas around the drawers that I was able to highlight with some gold leaf as well as the hardware. So those are the type of things that I want you to start thinking about and looking at when you start to rescue and restore a piece of furniture. It might even be the reason why you buy the piece. So that way, if you're looking at it, not only are you excited about the $5 that it cost, but you're starting to look at it, does it have the details that I can really take it from ordinary to extraordinary? So I want to go over just a few simple things that you want to remember when you're going to be adding detail and striping. All right, so here's an example. Here's a cabinet door that I painted in a light gray. Now, you're going to notice I've got a couple of different examples here. As a rule, now you can have some exceptions to the rule, but as a rule, you want to go darker instead of lighter. So if my base color is the lighter color, I want to go with a darker color for my striping. You'll notice the other thing is, this is in the same color family. This is a light gray, this is a dark gray. You want to make sure that if you're going to add color to a piece, that it's a complementary color. And so you can look at a color wheel. We'll actually take a Finish Friday and talk about color. How about that? So you want to just make sure that it's complementary, and especially the size is going to take, you're going to have to remember that as well. So let's just say on this cabinet door, I would probably either stripe out this detail here. I'm just going to lay that. I would stripe out either this detail here, or I would take the area on the side of the cabinet door from here over. So that's, I would not do both. You could do this area, you could do maybe this area in here, or this one. I would not do all of them. I might do the larger and the smaller one. So play with it, and as I always tell you, go to Habitat for Humanity. You want to be able to go to restores that they have and get some old cabinet doors and practice on them. You can use that as an exercise to be able to do striping. The other thing that you want to make sure you remember when you're doing striping of any kind is that you want to use a detailed artist brush like this. It comes to a tip. It's going to have a nice ability to be able to give you a really nice striping to your piece. You do not want to use, these chip brushes are great to be able to use for waxing, for painting, but they're too large to try to come back and get the detail on it. I would prefer that you work with more of a sable brush, a natural finish brush, and then that way you can have more control and you can come in and lay that color in. So, another thing that I want you to remember, this is a lighter color. Of course, this was our gray. And you can come back and you can stripe. When you've got a light color, you can go to darker colors. Usually it's better to go light to dark, but this way you see this is kind of the same light reflective value, but you can go even as dark as this gray or even this blue when you've got a lighter color. All right, so I want to be able to go over something else with you about adding detail, and that's also about gilding. So we have gold leaf, silver leaf, and copper leaf. That's going to allow you the opportunity to be able to add a lot of detail without a lot of expense or without a lot of trouble or time. Look at this drawer over here that I've got. Actually, this piece I got at an antique mall and it was $10. It's a nightstand, it has 2 drawers. But I came and painted it in Lady Singing the Blues. It's an incredible blue color. I used the cerusing wax on top of it, but I gilded the hardware in gold. Gilding hardware, guys, is so easy. You only need a couple of tools. One is going to be the gilding size, and the second is going to be your gold leaf. Your gold leaf is going to come in a book, much like this, and it's always going to have this orange tissue paper. And look how we call it a book, because it's got tissue that is sandwiching each piece of gold inside this book. You'll notice it also has a spine on it. So we talk about it being like a book that you read. One thing that you want to make sure you do, though, when you're using it to stripe or add details, is you want to cut it. You don't want to work with the book in its entirety. Next week, we're going to go over gilding a lot more in depth, but today I'm just going to touch on it just a little bit to be able, to have you learn how to do, because we're talking about detail. All right, so I'm going to take my size here, and basically size is another word for glue. We could call it gilding glue if we wanted to. It's completely white. It allows you to be able to put it on when you're gilding, but it's going to dry completely clear. So that way you're not gonna see it. All you're gonna see is your gold leaf or copper leaf or silver leaf, whatever it is that you're adding. All right, so I'm gonna take my artist brush, and you'll notice I'm just gonna dip a little bit in there. You always wanna offload. Now, I'm gonna show you a little trick. You can do a couple of things. You can come back and you can stripe it entirely, and I've got an example to show you. You can stripe it entirely by laying down your brush and going all the way across, allowing it to come to tack or drying point, which takes about 10 minutes, and then laying your leaf down and cleaning it. Or you can do something that I am calling more of an old world. You know, we've spent a lot of times in doing old world finishes. So I'm gonna load up the size on my brush like this, and then I'm gonna offload it to where it's still there, but it's not a lot. Now, this is a little trick. So that's why I love these Finish Fridays. I am teaching you tricks that I have spent literally 30 years to come up with, that you're gonna be able to use on your projects and make them a lot of fun, because I want you to enjoy the bragging rights from it. All right, so now here's my trick. Instead of holding the brush like this and trying to brush it on like you would be doing a striping, I want you to lay it down to the side like this. So look at this. So you're laying it down. Part of the reason I'm doing it this way is because there's a raised element. This color, you might be able to see it a little bit better. See how it's got all this acanthus detail on it? So if you're working on a real detailed piece, this is a perfect old world technique. So just roll it around just a little bit, like this. But then if you want to come back and you want solid detail, you're going to load your brush up again, always offload. I do that just to be able to control the amount of size that I have. And then look how I'm going to rest my arm on the side of my piece of furniture, so I can hold it, and I'll lay it down like this, and then where I've got a steady hand where I can go across if I want complete striping, like on this piece right here. All right? So just before we went on camera, I laid a little bit here, and so you can see the difference from it going from more of a matte finish to see where it's shiny. That is where the size has been applied. So once you put that size on, or this gilding glue, you're gonna see where it's kind of shiny. That's it. Guys, now I'm ready to gild. So here's another trick. You wanna make sure that you touch it with your ring finger. So that way, this finger is the weakest muscle in your hand. It's gonna have a tendency to pull it a little bit more. You don't wanna touch it with your index finger. You're not gonna feel the tack as much. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to be able to come to tack. All right, so now look how I'm gonna take this leaf and I'm gonna fold it back, and I can hold the entire book just like this. And I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna lay it down, and then I'm gonna burnish it in. So look how I'm taking the whole book, and we'll go more into this when we get really into doing a lot more gold leaf and antiquing when we do that next week. So now I'm gonna get my second piece. Look how I'm folding that back. I can hold the whole book, that way it's not going to fall apart. And then look at this, I'm pulling that tissue out while all of that's together. And then I'm just going to burnish the whole book over that. Now here's the part that I love. I'm going to take a little bit of a chip brush. You know, when we talk about our tools and all the different brushes that we need to be able to have on hand to be able to use, here I can use these chip brushes again. And I'm just going to go in one direction and get all that excess off. Look at that. And you're going, we did all that work? There's not very much there. The whole point of this is to where it looks older and like it was a suggestion of a long time ago that maybe the entire piece was gilded. Now, I'm taking some 4/0 steel wool, and look at this. I'm going to rub across it because the whole point is just to have a little bit of a suggestion that was there a long time ago. You can come back if you want to, and you can have a more solid area that will kind of accent this lighter gilding technique, which I love. Or you use this same approach of the size and the leaf, and you cover it completely. You don't do the brushing effect. You just cover the hardware completely. That way you can gild your hardware. So it makes it a lot of fun and very easy to do. All right, so last but not least, I want to just kind of be going over with you another tip or another secret that I use when I do some striping on details on pieces. You'll remember last week we went over our glazing liquid. This is just a great product for you to have in your DIY pantry because not only can you use it when you're going to be creating malachite or lapis, or you want to be able to put a darker color glaze on top of a piece, you can also use it when you want to do some striping. That way, if you don't want it quite as thick looking. All right, so I'm going to probably need a rag or some cheesecloth, and I'm going to take my darker color here. This is Atelier or Atelier, depending on, as Jean says, what part of the country you're from. And I'm going to take just a little bit of my paint here, and I'm going to mix it. Remember, we talk about doing 1 part glaze and 1 part paint, and then if you want it thinner, you can add 1 part water. I'm going to stir this up. I'll add just a little bit of tap water, and this can just be warm tap water, not much. Make sure that's stirred up really good. Again, if you're just tuning in, I mixed up our Atelier one-step paint with our glazed over glazing liquid, a little bit of water. And now I'm going to take my artist brush, and I'm going to make sure that's stirred up really well. And this is going to become a type of glaze that I can use as my striping. Now your striping can be solid if you want it to, but I also like doing glazes as striping. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to lay my brush down. Look at that color. See how working with colors that are more monochromatic are really, really beautiful? Now look how I'm laying my brush down. See how I'm moving my entire hand, and I'm using my wrist to kind of steady it. And I'm using that edge to kind of act as my ruler. I'm going to do one whole side so you can see this. All right. So I'm going to come back up here again, go all the way down, make sure I don't have any stop and start marks. Here's the pretty and the fun thing about this. As you are using a glaze, it acts sheer, where you can see the color underneath. See how subtle and see how pretty that is? Don't you love it? Love it. I can look and see if there's a little area that I missed. But this technique was used a lot in Italy. Look at that. So, so pretty. Love the detail on that. Isn't that soft? If I want to, I could come back if I did that outer edge. And I'll come back and do some striping there on the side. The other thing too, depending on the color that you're working with, sometimes I'll come back with a little bit of cheesecloth if I want to make it a little bit more subtle, and I'll just pat it like this to set it back even more and give it some mottled look. Makes it really, really pretty. I want to be able to show you the difference between glazing it and striping it with some solid paint. So now coming back with the one-step paint and a little darker color and striping it. Really, guys, this whole technique of striping and details can take your work that you're doing to a whole new level. You're going to love it. I want you to start really looking at pieces that you're looking to buy and seeing and making sure it's got the details. Now see the difference? And they're both wonderful, but it allows you to be able to see, messed up just a little bit. It allows you to be able to see how one is going to be a lot stronger as far as the difference that you're going to see, and one how it can be very subtle and very pretty. I love both of them. Depending on the piece, the character, the provenance, that piece, and its pedigree, they all have an influence from somewhere. Even if you find one of the most inexpensive pieces at my favorite junk store, it may have more of a Scandinavian feel or an English feel or an American feel. And you just want to be able to play with the color palette, be able to play with techniques. That's why I think it's so fun that you're building your skill level by tuning in with me every Finish Friday. So hopefully today was enjoyable. Hopefully you learned a lot. Now go out, find your estate sales at estatesales.net. Go to your favorite junk store and start enjoying the bragging rights. Have a great weekend, everybody.